Hi class. In this lecture I want to give you a little bit of background about Emilia Galotti. It's a drama that's written in prose, and it's a classic example of the German bürgerliches Trauerspiel. So what does it mean, Trauerspiel? Literally it means the play for mourning, so a sad play, and bürgerlich means of the middle class. So it's translated as domestic tragedy or the bourgeois tragedy. And the topic in this drama is a conflict between the nobility and bourgeoisie. And the reason is love and jealousy. And typically, a play consists of 5 acts, and each act has 8 scenes, except for one of the acts has 11 scenes. It was first it appeared in 1772 in Braunschweig and premiered in the same year. So towards the end of the Enlightenment period. This work is a very classical example of classical German literature. The next thing I want to bring up is the setting. So you've read the story. Have you noticed where this story takes place? Well, it takes place in Italy, not in Germany, and in a place called Guastalla. It's a small Italian principality or a small Italian princedom. And if you look at it on the map, today's Italy, this is Italy. So Guastalla is around here, and it's close to cities like Milano, Venezia. So in the middle between Venezia and Genova. So these bigger cities are well-known cities. So it's the northern part of Italy. So the question is, why is it that Lessing chose this setting as the scene for this tragedy? So the answer is it's because it's less dangerous for a writer to pick a different setting outside of his home country than to pick a setting in his own home country. So it is less dangerous for him than to pick a German state. Look at Shakespeare, for example. For Romeo and Juliet, Shakespeare chose the Verona as the setting. Verona is also in Italy, also northern part of Italy. And for Hamlet, he used Denmark, and for Macbeth, he used Scotland. And these are all independent countries, and nobody could attack him for portraying certain things which at home they don't like. So Lessing did the same thing. He did not choose a place in Germany, but in Italy instead. Next, I would like to look at the chart of the nobility, because nobility plays a big role in this story. So the story in this story, Lessing really illustrates the class difference. So the drama shows the whole social fabric. At the highest level, you have the Prince of Guastalla. So this is like the king, but prince because, as I said in an earlier lecture, king or prince are the same. King is for big kingdoms and prince is for like little states. So in this case, we have a little princedom and he's the prince. So that means he's the king of that state, but he's called the prince. So this is, he's in the Hochadel. Oh, Adel means nobility, and Hochadel means high nobility. So he has his high nobility by birthright. So born into this. So he reigns as an absolute monarch. And then we have the other main character is Marinelli. He's an aristocratic courtier, and his counterpart, Counselor Camillo Rota. He's actually not one of the main characters, but I want to show these two because these two belong to the group of Dienstadel. That means, Dienst means service, so nobility by service. So like Counselor Camillo Rota, there is actually a commoner. And Marinelli used to be a commoner too. But what happened was that he gained his nobility by service. So his title is derived from being in the king's service. And the character Marinelli is an absolutely intriguing character because he's the mastermind behind everything in the story, right? So, but he's also very dependent on the prince, and the prince is dependent on him. So what Lessing is trying to do in this story is that he's criticizing the dependence and the behavior of the court nobility in absolutism. So Marinelli is the representative of this group. He pretends false flattery and false friendship, and he fears that he will lose his important position in the court because this position is the only thing he possesses, and without the favor of the prince he would be a nobody. So this is why he acts the way he does in the story. And then below that you have the count. So the word Fürst here actually in German also means prince. It's just a different term. And below that is Graf. Graf means count. And in this story we have the Count Appiani, to whom Emilia got married, and Countess Orsina, who shows up in the 4th act. They belong to the group Niederadel. Nieder means low, lower. So the lower nobility, the lower aristocracy by birthright. So they also have, like the prince, they have their nobility by birth, not by service. And then you have in the descending order, so going down here you have the Baron is the Baron. We don't have a Baron in this story, but below that we have the group of like the knights, so that's the lowest kind of nobility, knights, and Ritter is knight, Edelknappe is like a squire, and Page is the knight's attendant. So the knights have their own squires. This is another group, but this didn't show up in the story. And after that we have down here the middle class. So these are not nobility. This is the bourgeoisie. Bourgeoisie, a French term for middle class. It's actually upper middle class. The Ordoados family, where Emilia comes from, is from the upper middle class. And then we have going down to the level of the so-called brigands. Brigands. I don't know how to pronounce this in English, but it's the lowest class. And we have that in the story through the characters of Piero and Angelo. They're like bandits or criminals. And in my next slide I have just a little chart of, again, the nobility, the high Hochadel and the Niederadel. So high nobility and low nobility. You have the king on the top, the queen. So männlich is male and weiblich is female. And männlicher Nachkomme is the male offspring or male descendant, and weiblicher Nachkomme is the female descendant. So king, König is king, Königin is queen, Kronprinz is crown prince, and Kronprinzessin is crown princess. Below the king you have Erzherzog. Herzog is the duke, and Erz is arch, so archduke, archduchess, and then you have below the duke, archduchess, duke, you have the herzog, which is the duke. Herzogin is the duchess, and their descendant is the prince or the princess. Below the duke, you have Fürst. Fürst is also a prince, and princess. Prince and Fürstin can be translated as princess. And you have Erbgraf is the arch count and arch countess. Then you have the lower nobility. That's when you have at the top of the lower nobility is Graf and Gräfin, so count and countess. So you have like Count Appiani and Count Orsina. Those belong here. And these other terms for their descendant is Erbgraf and Comtesse. That comes up sometimes in these kinds of dramas. Below the Graf you have a Baron, or called Freiherr. And below that you have the knights I just mentioned earlier. Junker is like a squire or a nobleman. And in my next slide I want to show once more the contrast between absolutism and Aufklärung, which is enlightenment. Absolutism, because this play is the main topic is the conflict between the nobility and the bourgeoisie. So the nobility represents absolutismus, and the bourgeoisie represents Aufklärung, 17th and 18th century. And the characteristics of these two groups is for the absolutism we have Souveränität, Unfreiheit, Geburtsrecht und Willkür. So you have sovereignty, so authority, power, and then no freedom. Unfreiheit is no freedom. Geburtsrecht is by birthright, and Willkür is arbitrariness. And in Aufklärung, enlightenment, we have Vernunft. Vernunft is the reason, Wissenschaft, science, and alle Menschen gleich und frei. All people are equal and free. So you have these two different groups clashing towards each other. So Emilia Galotti is a drama of the Enlightenment against the tyranny of the nobility. And it appeared towards the end of the Enlightenment, and it was a progress towards modern democracy. Why? Because the story shows a Renaissance prince who abuses his absolutist power. This is a critic by Lessing who begins the progress towards modern democracy in the 18th century. Aufklärung does exactly that. It begins to introduce ideas of democracy which were in the air because then the French Revolution happened. That's in the beginning of a very complex process of where we are today, better than it was then.